Okay, so here we are where we have the game, so when it ends, when either team reaches enough points, it says click to continue, but there's not any way to click to continue. So what we're going to have to do is connect another event function, just like we did for when you move the mouse, to the event that happens when the mouse button goes down. So let's look at where we connected up the mouse move function in window onload. And let's connect another one to canvas.addEventListener. Although this time, instead of connecting it to the mouse move event, we're going to connect it to one called mouse down. And we'll connect to it, instead of doing an inline function like I wrote here, where I'm defining it in place, let's just make one called handle mouse click, which we're going to find elsewhere in the code. Let's scroll up here above window onload and say function handle mouse click EVT, which we don't actually need in this case, but that's standard for anything you hand an event to be able to receive it in case it wants information off of it. And if we are showing the win screen, then at that time, zero out both scores. Let's make sure we don't get a typo in our score. Player 1 score. So if we're currently showing the win screen, then we want to zero out both scores. Player 1 score, player 2 score. And then we also want to turn this back off to regain control of the game in the occasion of clicking when we're on that screen. And this is another way to hook up these functions. Just want to show some examples of how things can be done in JavaScript. We can do it inline like this if it's something like there's no reason we'll ever call the function anywhere else. Or if it keeps things tidier for us, we can just call it by its name. As shown here, where handle mouse click isn't a special word in the same way that say mouse down is. That's just whatever we want to call the function. And when I scroll up, I can just define it right there. And so again, here's our function zoomed in on it. If showing win screen has been set to true, clicking will zero out the scores and return the player back to play by clearing the win screen. Now the reason I'm clearing the scores there, let's go ahead and do kind of two birds with one stone here, is let's look at where we set that to true. We don't actually want to zero the scores at this point, because how else will we be able to easily display what the scores were when the round ended, right? Or at least to say who won. So let's not zero the scores there yet. We'll wait until the player clicks from the game end screen to go back into play to then zero out the scores. I'm going to borrow this statement here, which has a comparison of each score against winning score. And let's go back to where we're drawing this end screen, where it says nothing but click to continue. So down here and draw everything. If we're showing the win screen, then we're showing that click to continue message. Let's move that a little further down on the screen. It doesn't seem to me right like it needs to be in the top left corner like that. Let's move it, I don't know, over some. Wait, how would maybe not that much. Remember, 800 pixels wide. I'm kind of eyeballing this stuff. Maybe 350. How far down? Let's say 5 out of 600 vertical. 5/6 of that might look okay. And now, here's why I copy and pasted those lines. I don't actually want to keep that OR bar, but I do want these general expressions because I want to post a different message based on which player earned enough points to have ended the round. One of them must, since they passed that OR bar, to have flipped show win screen in the first place. And so if player 1 finished, let's go ahead and move this color fill up here. It can be shared among these. Now, I don't need it. Well, yeah, if I didn't, you're going to see it wrap, but that's fine. Let's say left player 1, left player 1. And for position that, let's put that closer to the top of the screen, maybe 200 down. And I'm going to do the same deal here for player 2, where I will say right player 1. And it can be in the same position because, of course, the nature of an if-else statement is only ever going to show one of these or the other. It can't show both. Even if both of these were true, and this isn't the kind of game where you can have a draw from people winning at the same time, even if they were both true, if this first if condition passes its test, it won't even give the else a chance to evaluate. So we know these two will never overlap. So let's save it. We'll give it a second to catch up its scores. Let's just let the computer player win this time. It should say right player 1. Click to continue. If I click, it reset. The scores went to 0. Now let's try beating the computer, which once again, easiest way to do that, well, maybe I can look into defeating it with skill. Yeah, left player 1. By skill, I mean, just sitting there while it can't catch the ball fast enough. Click to continue. There we go. So okay, so we've got now we can click from the end screen. It tells us which player won. Let's go ahead and add that net. It's a good, attractive thing to add to the playfield. And you wouldn't think that it really adds that much, but it helps balance things out. It's a nice little bit of visual polish to end on. So let's go back to our code. Let's look for draw everything. Circle, rect, color rect. Draw everything. Let's just make this above draw everything. Right now everything lives in one file. That's fine. We're almost done with the project, so we can just pack in just a little bit more. Let's make a function called drawNet. And in drawNet, we're just going to do a for loop, which I don't actually think we've used anywhere yet in this program. I equals 0. I is less than canvas height. Remember, that's going to be the vertical height of the screen, so 600. I plus equals 40. That's my cat eating in the background. Hope no one minds. And in here, all this is saying is start a variable at 0. The variable here is I. Count up to less than 600 in intervals of 40. So jumping 40 pixels at a time. It doesn't actually mean pixels here, it just means numbers. We're going to use it as pixels. And at each location, we're going to draw a color rect. Remember, we made this function to be able to draw a shape in a position. And let's say canvas.width divided by 2 minus 1 to center it. It's going to be too thick. We're going to draw it at I, its width 2, and its height 20. And my reasoning here is that, okay, I'm going to make this 2 pixels thick. That helps me see I'm balancing it here in the center where I start at the middle, move it left 1, so it'll have a pixel on either side. At I, this is the variable in the loop, so this will happen. Like I say, it starts at 0. It'll go as long as it's less than 600. It's going to jump in intervals of 40 pixels at a time. So it's going to start at 0, then 40, then 80, then 120, and so on. And at each location, it'll put the shape there, which is 2 pixels wide and 20 pixels tall. And of course, if I make it black, we're not going to see it. So let's make it white. So we should see a net just drawn every other segment going down the middle. Lastly, remember that just because we put code into a function doesn't actually mean it does anything until we call that function from somewhere else. So let's figure out where we want to put it. Do we want it to show up on the game over, game lose screen? I don't think so. So if we put it above here, it would still show up on that win screen. If we put it below here, this is the player paddle. The paddles will never get in the way of it anyway. Even if, let's say, the ball was a different color. Let's say we made the ball green. We'd want to be able to see it on top of the net, right? So it should be drawn after the net is. So this position should seem to work fine to me. I will save it. There's our net. So we have a game. We can play to 3. We have an AI which plays. It's not great, but it works. We have mouse input. We have circles being drawn. We have motion. We have bouncing. Man, what a day. Congratulations on finishing your first video game project. Hopefully the first of many. Now, you might have noticed that in the sidebar over there, you can see that this was actually just section 1 for tennis game. And what it's section 1 out of is hands-on intro to game programming. You'll find the exact same sort of approach taken for 5 other types of games in here, which include Brick Break, racing game, bitmapped graphics. We have 2-player simultaneous keyboard controls, Warrior Legend, which takes that same kind of framework, but then shows how you can remake that into a completely different experience with a warrior who walks around, collects keys, open gates. Each one of those 6 games in the first half of the book and the second half of the book are training you in, covering different sets of skills that'll then form a solid foundation from which you can go on to develop original projects